Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Andreas, who is CEO of Yarowa. Andreas, good to have you on the podcast. Nice to see you. We met in Barcelona, didn't we? It was slightly sunnier where I am. Where are you calling us from? Where are we speaking to you from?
Wonderful. Thanks. Hi, Alex. Nice to be here. Yeah, I'm actually calling from Switzerland, from Zug, a very small town close to Zurich. A lot of people refer to it because it's the crypto valley. We are not into crypto, but there are a lot of tech companies around here.
Yes, I sort of know it quite well from the crypto scene. Not that I'm particularly into the crypto scene. I'm just like everyone else, lost a load of money on Bitcoin. But never mind. So, Andreas, before we go down that rabbit hole, we always like to traditionally start the podcast by asking you to introduce yourself and obviously the Yarowa business, if you could.
Wonderful. Many thanks. Yeah, I'm actually a 46-year-old. I'm an insurance professional for many, many years, almost 25 years. Sounds very boring. It was not always boring, but sometimes it was. So around 6 years ago, we decided to create Yarowa as a new business model, as a new company, together with some friends that I have worked with also in some years before. We were actually all in different insurance companies at that time, so 6 years ago. So I was working for Zurich Insurance, one of the colleagues for AXA, for example. Because we realized that there are some challenges that insurance companies have that they can't solve it individually. We realized, especially when you talk about claims management, about the vendor or provider management, you need lots of different kinds of vendors or providers to settle claims, that even a large insurance company doesn't have enough scale to really have a high quality local network of vendors or providers to serve their customers. And that's why we came up with the idea to build a cloud-based platform, a marketplace where we actually aggregate all these different kinds of providers. So we have now doctors, lawyers, car repair shops, tradesmen, whatever is needed to settle a claim. And then how the journey goes, around 6 months ago, we could launch an additional product to this provider management or vendor management platform. That's how we can digitize the cover check. So we can automate the cover check that insurance companies do. That's still, you probably can't imagine, it's still a manual process at the moment. So they need to train their claims handlers. If there is a search event, they normally have a shortage of people. Then, of course, as it is manual, there are mistakes that happen, and all the information that is also needed for product development is very limited. So we had now, after 4 years development, that was not an easy thing, and that's probably the only relation we have somehow to this topic of crypto, but I can explain later why it has nothing to do with crypto actually, is that we have a solution how we can transform a policy wording and the claims guidelines. The claims guidelines normally can change more frequently into a smart contract. And this smart contract is then used in the first notification of loss process and then also for an automated cover check. This solution we actually also got great traction in the press with innovation prizes in Germany, in Switzerland, and a lot of demand in several countries. And it's quite easy, right? You imagine if you would be a policy holder, you would also think that you notify a claim and then you want to know as quick as possible. Actually, immediately you want to know is something covered or not, and best would be not only that you know it's covered, that they also offer you a solution, and they say, hey, there is a fence that is broken, needs to be fixed here, you have the tradesman you can choose. So this should actually be the natural process. And now after 5 years, we work with over 90 insurance companies together, also the large brands like AXA, Generali, Zurich, Allianz, and we do that in several countries. We have in around 5-6 countries operations on ground, but we are actually market and language agnostic, so there is actually no limitation.
Amazing. It's so much to unpack there. I remember meeting you in Barcelona when I was at the DIA ITC event, and this just seems like such an obvious solution to a problem that we know exists. And obviously it can't be that easy because it's, the amount of development time we've had means that it's one of those things that sort of solving simple problems have complex solutions at times, and then solving it the right way. Um, I'm sort of intrigued about how you all kind of came together because I think you had quite an interesting career to get to this point. It's like, technology driven, then you kind of more move into more insurance products. But you mentioned that you sort of co-founding team didn't work at the same company, but did you cross paths in the? Why was this? That's why I'm always interested. Why was now the time, and why was this the problem that you wanted to solve?
There probably always various things come together. First of all, after being in a corporate environment for over 20 years and you're at the age of around 40, you probably think, so what's next? So what can I do else? Honestly, I always like to work for a corporate as well. It was never that I was kind of not happy to go up in the morning, but still it was knocking me. So there must be something more. And there was the idea of at this time there was actually a big trend of insurtech, fintech. Remember 5 years ago was the big thing. Everybody was talking about it. But unfortunately, I didn't have an idea. And then I came across, actually more or less by coincidence, with one of my co-founders that was a former employee of mine, who said, "Hey, I actually have a good idea for an insurtech company. Would you be interested to discuss that?" And I said, "Oh, that's the right moment to do it." I'm absolutely open to do a next step. It was the right time, and we also realized with our solution, the same solution 7, 8 years before, nobody would have been interested. So there are so many elements of timing that need to come together, I think.
Do you th- what's the biggest pushback you have from this marketplace solution? Because is it the complexity of, because we know that the best service providers, it's interesting for me. I always think about this as a consumer. So on a consumer level, if I want to fix my car, if I want to have some work done on my house, I don't go to one of the big brand providers of these things. But when you're an insurance provider, for example, you will get an arrangement with like the company with the biggest, network of garages. So the kind of quality thing has always been, is it that kind of validation of insurance, validation of credentials? What's been the biggest hurdle to kind of this marketplace idea?
I would say we were also, of course, always asked, where are you disruptive? And I always said, we are actually not disruptive. We help insurance companies to do something better and more professional that they were anyway doing. But what we have seen is that in some markets, insurance companies, they worked together with 3, 4 big companies. And these companies, the only service they had is that they had a network of providers. And of course, for them at the beginning, for these large companies, it was a big step to be open to say, yes, we join a marketplace, yes, we join a platform with all our providers and their locations, because it makes them more transparent, of course. You not only discuss about price, you also discuss about quality, what was a very important part. But that's where we probably took the most time to convince these large providers to join the platform. The insurance companies quite quickly realized that they have a lot of benefits. Also, as you, again, if we think of you as a policyholder, you normally would, if the insurance company is organizing for you the provider that is going to fix something, you also prefer to have a local person or a local company that offers good quality, right? You don't want that somebody is fixing something in your house and needs to drive 200 kilometers to come there. That's not what we want. That's why insurance companies realized quite quickly what the benefit is. The small or high quality providers, they were of course very open because it was their chance to get access to all these still very interesting orders. Else it was like a market they didn't have access to because they didn't have the chance to participate. And now with our platform, they have the chance to participate. And what we also do, I guess what makes us quite unique there is we are not an open platform where everyone can sign up, because else you would have a problem with quality, right? If everybody could come, oh, I also do some painting, or I also have a car repair shop, or I'm also a little bit a lawyer, doesn't work. So what we did is each insurance company they have formally or informally, they have their networks, because either they have it centralized, but often they have it decentralized. They have their people on the ground. They have their claims experts on the ground. And these claims experts, they know which ones are the good ones. They have this knowledge. So we invited insurance companies to nominate all the providers that they are aware of that do good quality, and we onboarded those providers. So it's only by invitation you can become a part of our platform and you get access, but then you get access not only to one insurance company, you get access to all of them. And with this, we could create this marketplace that works for all the participants.
Mm. I'd be interested to see the impact it has on, on price, because we had a company called Handy on here, who I don't know, it's not so much a marketplace, but addressing the same solution that post-claim is that you would have these claims that kind of fall between a large, construction company would be interested only in the larger bits of work. And then you had these kind of smaller claims where it just was very low priority. So that meant the service levels were poor. But also kind of exactly that you'd have these smaller organizations, or sorry, small companies, small like individual builders that very high quality, probably more price efficient. Because ultimately, I would have, one would imagine that some of these large companies, the way they work, they're outsourcing the work anyway. So all they're really doing is holding that contract and holding the right insurances for that, and then being responsible. But actually, the work's probably getting done by this network effect. Is that something that you kind of anecdotally were aware of, or did that come up in the conversations?
Now, what we realized it was a plan that we have because we had from the beginning. Because if you look at the structure of the market, so what's the worst that can happen from an insurance perspective is the biggest leakage you have in that area. It's not the hourly rate if it's a little bit more, or if somebody takes a few minutes longer. That's not what actually it turns the needle. What the difference is if somebody goes to a customer to fix a wall or to paint a wall because a wall is broken, if this painter is not only painting one wall, but it's doing two or three, because the policyholder says, "Oh, I would be very glad. Please also do this, this, and this if you're here." And then they say, "Okay, we can all charge on the insurance." They have 3 times more costs. Or if for leakage detection, there are some companies that are not so trained. They go in a bathroom to find the leakage, and then they draw holes into tiles. So all the tiles need to be replaced. And if you have a high quality one, he finds a way, how can he do his job without breaking something else? And this is where the leakage, the really big payments come from, that you want to avoid as an insurance company. That's why the quality aspect of it was always very, very important to us, to make sure that that the costs are kept in a let's say on a lower level. But what was also always our goal, we always had as a principle that we want to make sure that the providers can still earn good money. Because it doesn't work if you try to go from one offering to the other offering to another offering, and you pressure on price. You will get bad quality, you will have unhappy providers. And we try to create a system also, for example, for smaller claims, that we say to the insurance companies, don't ask for an offer, give a cost expense cap on a certain level. Let the tradesmen in this example, let them work, because it's not efficient if they need to do first a quote. You need to check it, you need to accept it. You can do that for larger ones, but not for really the small things. So that's a bit of philosophy. That's why we also have seen that in general the costs came down, but it didn't come down because the providers were pressured. It's more because it's better organized.
Yeah, that's sort of more natural reduction in price because it's more efficient. Because I think the complaint has always been, and I think I shared with you, claims is always very close to my heart. I started out in claims and spent half of my headhunting career just recruiting in senior level claims and loss adjusting positions. And particularly when I got close to the loss adjusting or TPA firms, but particularly loss adjusting, and we talk about this relationship with the insurers, and it was this sort of almost kind of it was always price driven. It was like commoditized service. And the problem with that is it only goes one way, and then you essentially end up squeezing out quality, and for both sides. And actually, the sort of lack of transparency, inefficient process, inefficient workers, all kind of leads to that kind of lack of profitability. Whereas, as you're saying, if you can make the model more efficient, we can get that low price for the insurers, which they could pass on to their customers. But we're doing it in a way that drives quality as well, because yeah, that big company to big company relationship, all that then becomes is, you know, if you're a loss adjusting firm as an example, and I know we're not necessarily talking about loss adjusting firms, but taking those as an example, your your driver becomes just not to lose that contract, and then it's just an erosion of the price. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to kind of have this unique model. Andreas, if I remember correctly, and I might not be correct on this, isn't there something quite unique about your pricing model and the way that you generate revenue?
Because there are several elements that I would consider that were USPs or were very important to be successful with the solution we have. One of those is exactly the pricing model. As you also know, when you talk or work with a large company, they have their budgets for IT and for projects, so the operational expenses, and they are very, very tightly managed. So normally you have also a cycle of 1 year, and then every year it gets planned again. So if we would have been relying on with our pricing model on these operational expenses, it would also have been very hard and more time consuming to scale, because a lot of companies would have said, yeah, we like your solution, we like what you do, but we need to wait for the next cycle that we at all have budget to work together. So what we have done is that we actually have defined a 100% transactional fee model, means there are no fixed costs, no licensing costs, nothing. But each transaction that gets executed on our platform, so it's for both solutions on the provider management side, but also on the smart contracting, on the automated cover check side, there is a fee, and this fee can be allocated to the particular claim, so to the claims costs. So we are on the one hand in the bucket of the big claims payments, what is also correct, because it's an additional effort that is needed to settle that claim, and also the benefit that you at the end potentially pay less because you have a high quality provider, you have also as a benefit on that claim. So it's actually correct how we do it, but it also helped us on a tactical way to always have the possibility to work together with insurance companies if they like our solution.
Mm. Yeah, I was just thinking, as a man that has a kind of sales quota on his head every month, and a partnership's kind of part of my job. It's like it's a lot easier to go and sell something where you say you don't have to pay anything; you can just sell. So, it's interesting kind of method of adoption, but it also makes perfect sense. And it's interesting that it's come from. Do you think that model would have come from people that don't come from the insurance industry? You know, you've got this background. I'm sure it could have done, but it feels like a result of working in the insurance industry is why you've been able to come up with that creative kind of pricing model.
Absolutely. This is one of the, I guess it's unique for insurance, that part. And to be fully transparent, it was actually when I was working on the concept of the company, when I did the business plan and the business model, I was writing it down. Obviously, I was sharing it with some of my friends in the insurance industry, and one was a manager of one of the big insurance companies in Switzerland. He said, I very much like the idea. I will be open for a pilot, I can already tell you now, if you really implement what you are showing me. But please do the pricing model like this, else it takes me a year until I have enough money from my IT department to start working with you. So actually the idea came by a friend in the industry where I was sharing the concept. He said, change this, then it makes it also much easier for us to work together.
Yeah. Shows how important those kind of relationships are. So it's like things like the Lloyd's Lab. You know, we work very closely with the Lloyd's Lab and support them. And I know you've came from the industry, but it's that kind of industry insight into actually how practically things work, not just how they should work, because we love to talk about how things should work, but it's a very imperfect model. So yeah, knowing what is possible, and that's just corporate business. I mean, it's funny for me being a service provider to the industry, just thinking about the transparency of this. And yeah, the reason why we resist working with some of the very large companies is actually how painful that procurement process is, and going through those processes is yeah, not great. So particularly as a small service provider, I think even kind of having that interaction point is very attractive as well, because as a provider, I want to work with something that's already managing those kind of relationships, is managing those contracts, and then it's just a case of me being able to execute on that work. It's that's all we need to do. Um, I wanted to talk to you about regulation. Is there any pushback from a regulatory perspective? Is the regulation probably obviously has to factor into this? And yeah, how much of a headache did that cause you in your development?
Yeah, very, very good question. Yeah, actually, there are two sides how I would look at it. One thing is also you could call it a coincidence, or it could have been a good tummy feeling. So also one of our founders was the general counsel at Zurich Insurance in Switzerland. So he brought all the knowledge about data privacy, data security on the table. And he said from the beginning, he said, let's build this platform that we have the perfect platform, or we have it done by design as well. I remember we had some hard discussions in the beginning. Is that really needed everywhere? And then he said, no, let's do it perfect. And he always said, you will see some years down the lane, it will be one of our USPs. And we did that. So as he had recommended, and now we can really say we have architecturally, we have a platform with several layers of encryption with keys that only people with the right keys can see stuff. And so there we are very, very fit. We did in the first year, we also did an ISO certification, 27001 and 9001. What normally some other young companies told me if I'm nuts. They said, how can you do that already in this early state? It doesn't make sense. And we said, no, that's a very important part. And now we see more and more in some markets. We immediately could win some clients, and the half of the discussion was about that part, if we have it really under control, and only half of the discussion was really with the business, if they like the solution. And I guess we are the only solution out of the box that you can use also for claims in with doctors, with lawyers, where you have very sensitive data. That, yeah, no, absolutely a USP. What we also were, that's a bit perspective of the product itself. And then, of course, when we were launching different countries, we are working, Switzerland is the home market, where we are the market standard as well. But we are also in Germany, in UK, in Italy, in Austria, and some other countries. And there we were always a bit wondering at the beginning if the services we offer for health insurance, if this can be scaled outside of our home market. We then realized that this works actually very well, because the structure we have on our platform is not based on a product. So we are not talking about health insurance, but we talk about the service that you can book a service, a second opinion of a doctor for a work disability, for example. And this service you have in all the markets. You have everywhere in each market, you have a need that the doctor sometimes need to give a second opinion on a work disability. But in some countries, it's called this product. In some countries, it's called this product, but the service itself is the same. And that was something, honestly, I was at the beginning a bit reluctant. I'm really not sure if the health part we can scale it, but now we see in the combination with what we have as data security and data privacy in the platform, together with this logic of service, we can scale it actually very fast.
It's funny you mentioned healthcare. I've I've mentioned this far too many times on the podcast, but I had a terrible experience with my health insurance provider, and it was all on the claims process. And I was just I sort of extrapolating that out. Have you seen have you seen some of your insurer partners be able to kind of change that claims experience on a personal level now? Because it seems like there's a potential to sort of empower your customers to effectively go out and have a much quicker, more efficient claims process. Has that changed the way any of them have handled claims? Has that kind of left them to kind of go, right, well, you know, you can see it's validated, you can see you're insured, you can see you're covered, and you can proactively. Yeah, I'm just wondering how many have changed actually how that claims process works, rather than kind of, let's say, a sort of claims call center. Yeah, have they changed actually how that claim process now works on using your product?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. We see how it's going to change now. First, to give you an answer a bit in general, and then I will come back quickly to healthcare in particular. So in general, what we of course now see is that first of all, the insurance companies offer much more clearly that they actually can organize the whole help to settle a claim, so that you as a policyholder, if you're notifying something, you don't have the hassle of all the administration, running after providers, getting quotes, handing it in, paying the bill by yourself and asking for the money back, so that you don't have anymore. So they openly communicate and say, we can organize everything for you. Then there are functionalities in the platform that they can send you a link, and then they say, hey, we send you a link with the 3 car garages in your area that we would recommend, or the 3 lawyers in your area that we would recommend, and you go and you click. And then also, you know, the appointment booking with the provider, everything is also digital. So you can then also digital with the lawyer, you can book your first appointment. So there you have really this customer interaction on a digital level. But everything then, when it comes about handing in the bill by the provider, checking the bill, all this is in the background, also partially automated on the platform, but you as a policyholder, you're actually not bothered anymore. And of course, what you always get, what we hear, what is kind of standard for us, that you of course can give a rating where you're happy with this provider, yes or no, but you have the full service. So that's how it is generally used. Now, when we look a bit into healthcare, because you mentioned it, we differentiate a bit 2 different kinds of doctors we have on the platform. On the one hand, we have these doctors that do second opinions. So there, I would say the customer experience didn't change very materially, except that it is also easier to get an appointment. The other part is, in UK, we have actually all the large hospitals on our platform, also a lot of the clinics. So we can, over our platform, we can even book an appointment of a doctor in a particular hospital. And there we see the customer experience of one of our largest clients has changed dramatically, as they now, before they had somebody would call and say, oh, I need a doctor for my throat, I have a bad throat. And then it would say, okay, we will call around. And they literally were calling around doctors and would get back and say, okay, I could find one, you can go then and then. And now they can, on the phone directly with the customer, can say, okay, we have here one, should I book this one, or you want to have this one? We can book directly in the calendar of this doctor.
That's yeah, I'll have to find out who that is when we get off the phone. My experience was that I had the photo out and didn't find them, and it was supposed to be empowering, but it was just annoying. It just wanted to kind of get it done. And I think that's the thing as well. The other thing when I think about solutions like this is that the changing face of the customer as well is that, you know, I'm a customer that I don't want to talk to a human if I don't need to. If I can resolve a problem with my bank without talking to them, I want to. You know, if I can do the same with my insurance provider, then you know, because I want to do it on my own terms, and it's, you know, having to make phone calls is then interrupting my day, and I think, you know, I think everyone is moving towards that if they're not there already, because I'm by no means the most kind of digitally native individual.
Yeah.
I wanted to move on to the conversation slightly about smart contracts, because we mentioned it earlier in the conversation. The smart contract for me just sounds like an essential element to this, and I wanted to understand why, and how you use the smart contract. But then, secondly, to load this up, I just don't understand why smart contracts are not so more widely embraced in insurance. It makes 100%. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, the smart contract, how it works is, you need to imagine we give a drag and drop environment to the insurance company, that they can, in this drag and drop environment, they can create a smart contract by themselves. So they take their policy wording, they take their claims guidelines, what they now have in a physical form or in a PDF form. and they construct this model. That's something we can train a claims handler or an underwriter, and within 2 hours he knows how to use it, and he can click publish, and then this smart contract is created. Now this smart contract, as it is smart, is asking only those questions that are relevant to a customer, to a certain claim. So if there is a first notification of loss, the smart contract automatically displays only the questions that are relevant, because it knows what is needed to do the cover check. This normally are only 3 to 5 questions at the end to the policyholder, so very lean and small, but the relevant ones. And afterwards, the smart contract offers like input fields. You can say, okay, this was broken, this was damaged, this needs to be replaced. You can put in the items, you categorize them, and then it calculates in detail how much is covered of it or not. For example, you would say, I had a storm and my fence was broken. You would say, to replace the fence, you would have an offer, or the insurance company has already an offer through our platform for providers that would say it costs 800 euros to replace it. It would show exactly, okay, 730 are covered, 70 not, because it's the deductible, or it would say it reached the limit, that's why it's only 500, or it also gives explanation why something is not fully covered. So you get this proper assessment there, that you then also can then we also can, of course, start the following process to say who should now come and fix it, or do you want to have the money paid out? So this is how it actually works with these smart contracts. Now, technically, what we use is a functional program language. That's a similar language, or the same language you also use in the area of blockchain. Now, often people ask, is it then a blockchain you have? Then say, no, it's not a blockchain, because blockchain has on one hand the smart contract, on the other hand the distributed ledger. The distributed ledger is not relevant for us. We don't have that, but this capability to create flexible smart contracts, and insurance contracts are very complex because they are not a tree that goes down step by step. They always have loops again, and these loops change the whole logic again. That's what makes it very, very difficult to have a solution. We were lucky we had an IT professor that actually had the lead to develop that for 4 years. Took him 4 years together with the team to come up with a solution that now is fully functional. That's why I guess everyone wants to go into that direction, also in insurance. Insurance companies realize the potential of it. What they struggle with is they have lots of old products that they have sold. They have a lot of versions. They have a big variety of products, and it makes it for them very difficult to bring them in a digital form. They tried sometimes to hard code something, but if you want to hard code something, it takes them a year for one contract, and if you have 500 contracts or the different types of contracts, then you are never finished. It takes you 500 years. So with our solution, we are now convinced, of course, that we have the tool that the insurance companies need also for the legacy products, for everything actually to bring it back in a digital form. But we see the interest is very high. But as it is with insurance, of course, it's always in step by step we go forward. But I guess everybody wants to go there. They simply sometimes don't know yet how.
Yeah, and like you say, it's step change. I mean, we're seeing a lot of this incremental kind of evolution of the insurance industry, and yes, it's great that we've got fully digital insurers that are kind of building on natively digital platforms, which makes these things easier. But if you're a legacy player, then yes, you can start writing new contracts that might be smart contracts, but doing that retrospective work is probably just inefficient and it's not cost effective or therefore profitable. It's been I could talk about this all day, and it's been a really good conversation. I always like to end on kind of like what's next. I know that you raised the Series A last year in July, led by our friends at EOS. But Yeah, what's next for the Yarowa team, other than changing the name to be a Y rather than a J, because everyone kept mispronouncing it, I think.
Exactly. We realized in some markets that as we had a J at the beginning and not a Y, they were, is it now Charova or Yarowa? And it made it more difficult. And that's why we changed it now with a Y, Yarowa, so that it's clear for everyone how to pronounce it. Yeah, no, our goals are, of course, we have a solution that works, right? So we have actually two solutions with the provider management and the automated cover check that are unique. They work well, and we have good traction with over 90 insurance companies in several European countries. But there are still much more European countries we can leverage our platform to. There are also with the existing customers, we have still, or in the existing markets, we have, of course, a lot of potential still to grow. We also use the same platform for property management companies. So, for example, one of the largest property management companies in Europe is using the platform because they also have damages in buildings they need to have fixed. And we use it as well for leasing companies. So there we have, let's say in Europe, we have still big plans how to spread it more, to grow more. And this we can also do with our current setup. We can do it with our current funding. So this is actually what is the base plan we are working on. In addition, we are also now looking into some other regions like North America. We know that there is the way we solve these problems, so challenges that the insurance companies have. We haven't seen a company doing it the same way. Of course, there are companies that try to solve the same, but they have a different approach, of course. But there we also see some potential as well in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. But this will always be in a second step. First, we have now still for the next 6 to 12 months, of course, the full focus on further rollout in Europe. And we are now elaborating when it would be the right time and if it's the right decision to go then also into other regions.
Love it. World domination. It's on the agenda. So, Andreas, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have this conversation. And yeah, I was intrigued back in Barcelona, and I think it's a really neat solution for something that's such an obvious problem to people that work in the insurance industry, and particularly claims nerds like me. So, thank you once again for being a guest on the Leadership in Insurance podcast.
Alex, many thanks from my side as well. It was a big pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.